Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Opelika-Auburn News. I'm Sarah Palczewski, and I am with Auburn sports beat reporter Jordan Hill and sports editor Justin Lee to talk about the craziness that has unfolded in the past 24 hours here in Auburn. Now, Gus Malzahn is now out as Auburn's coach after 8 seasons with the team. First question for both of y'all, did you expect this to happen right after the Misstate game or not at all?
I will say I was kind of curious to see, I think the timing kind of caught me off guard at first, but you kind of look, especially with the day to sort of reflect and look at it, you look at the struggles especially the offense's inconsistency. You can sort of understand why the decision was made and when it was made. Sort of the fact of the matter now is sort of looking at who they hire, how quickly they make a hire with the early signing period coming up. But, yeah, I got to say I was surprised. Auburn's offense looked a little off against Mississippi State, but came on in the fourth quarter. And you sort of thought, that might have been enough to get Gus a ninth year, especially because of the pandemic season, especially because so much was out of whack. You thought he might get another year, especially with his $21 million buyout, that he may get another season and the bar would be raised in 2021, but turned out not to be the case, and now we're covering a coaching search.
All right, and Justin, what about you? Did you expect this to happen?
Well, nobody knows except the people in the room where it happens. That's a Hamilton reference. When what's gonna go down and when. So yeah, I mean, it was a surprise. I don't know, when's the last time a coach got fired after an SEC win? Can you guys think about that? But when you see kind of the moving and shaking and the direction they're trying to go in, I mean, you have to do it as soon as possible, so it does make sense to do it.
I wonder if it might have been Joe Moorhead, the Egg Bowl last year.
Yeah, that's true.
That might have been.
Did they have a bowl? No? Okay, we'll look into that.
Yeah.
Well, going off of that, Justin, in your opinion, I know you're not an athletics director, not somebody who gets paid.
I could be.
Yeah. I know you're not the person who gets paid the money to make these decisions, but in your, opinion, would you say that this was the right move for Auburn football right now?
Here's the thing. You can go in a few directions here, and that's kind of the crossroads that Auburn is at. I mean, you can, if you stay with Gus, you're keeping that fire that's gone. I think about the move from Gene Chizik to Gus Malzahn. That was keeping the fire going. It was keeping building what you had. And if you looked at this, here's the thing. You can't look at this. But a lot of people are like, oh, who will we get? Or you look at it as, when you're thinking about a decision, who you're going to bring in. But you can't really do that. You have to ask yourself, if you're a decision maker, is this going to work? Is this the way forward? And if the answer is no, you make the change, regardless of who's out there, who the candidates are, or whatever, right? So, if they're making the right decisions, they're seeing that and they're going, okay, this is not the way forward. This is not what's best for Auburn. And they're making that choice. And now, like I said, we're seeing different. You can either try to keep the fire going, or try to build in a whole new direction with Mario Cristobal, a Saban assistant. That would be a different path that you've been on before. We'll see. But as far as making the move, that's what goes into those decisions. It's not really you're thinking. Can this move forward in a successful way? And you say no. That's how you make this decision.
And Jordan, I have to ask, same question to you. Do you think that this was the right move for Auburn right now?
I think given the circumstances, you can see how Alan Green and the people that came to the decision decided that it was time to move on. You look especially at the fact that Gus has always been known for his offensive prowess, his success on offense, and the fact the offense was just so inconsistent these last few years. Story I wrote today, really looking at the Auburn offense versus the Auburn defense. Every year for the last 5 years that Kevin Steele has been here, the defense has been more efficient than the offense statistically. Besides 2020, the offense was just barely a little bit better than the defense, and that was a defense that lost a lot of talent. So you can see how Alan Green and the people that were in the room making that final decision looked at the trajectory of the program and decided we're not satisfied with the way things are looking, with the fact that the offense has not been reliable, has not been making the progress that they wanted to see with a young quarterback, and showing the strides that could convince them that, as Gus had said the last few weeks, even after the Iron Bowl loss and even after the Texas A&M loss, that 2021 set up well for Auburn, and that he felt like they could contend, and that they had the veterans coming back and the experience to be able to contend in the SEC. He had said that, and they came to the decision that that wasn't, they didn't trust the progress that the staff was making, so they made a move.
And you have Georgia and Alabama at home next year, so there was a way that it was setting up. But the thing is, here's what really happens is, if Allen Green, it's an arms race in the SEC. You're trying to build the best facilities, which Auburn does not have the best facilities. You're trying to create the best recruiting environment. Auburn does not have the best recruiting environment. And you're looking at people and saying, okay, to gain X resources, you have to give them this, right? And that's what kind of happens is, if you think this is the best way to build support to make a change, that's how these kind of decisions get made.
And going off that, you saw so many Auburn players, current and former, taking to social media, posting their reactions to Gus Malzahn being fired from his position as head coach, all saying great things about him as a coach and a person. What did you guys kind of take away from that? And why do you think these players all decided to voice their opinions about Auburn's decision about Gus?
Well, I mean, we said it the whole time leading up. The players were never going to quit on Gus, and that's the other thing about when these decisions are made. Sometimes the bell rings is when the players quit on the coach, and there's no future in the locker room. That never happened here. It didn't happen in any way. They played through to the last game with him, danced with him, arm in arm with him at the end, and that's no surprise because that's who Gus is. Gus is here for the players. The players are always here for him. That's no surprise at all to me.
Your take on it?
Yeah, and that's a point that Justin actually made in his column that Gus is a high school coach through and through, and people want to use that as a negative, but you could see that in the reactions on Sunday once the news came out. Players, were really devastated because they knew that he had their backs. He showed, his love for them and the appreciation he had, and they, like Justin said, you can say whatever you want to about the 2020 team and the flaws and the deficiencies, but they never quit. I mean, they had number 5 Texas A&M on the ropes at home and just couldn't finish. Started out slow against Mississippi State, and you kind of wondered, well, are you going to be able to see them really decide, well, we're playing poorly, this isn't going to go our way, let's just kind of mail it in. And they didn't. They turned around in the fourth quarter and really put up an impressive fourth quarter performance to win that game. And that's the thing with these decisions. A lot of the time when a firing is made, it's not like there's a good guy and a bad guy in these decisions. It comes down to winning, and it comes down to the trajectory of the program. Decision makers decided that they didn't feel like it was moving in the right direction, made a change, but again, that doesn't take away from the kind of person Gus Malzahn is. Also doesn't take away from the achievements he had here at Auburn, both as offensive coordinator and then as head coach.
And you brought up Justin's column, which has been receiving a lot of attention based off of just Gus and the Auburn family. Justin, why did you decide to write that column, and kind of a little bit about, were you surprised to see the feedback you received on it?
Well, it's just joining a conversation that's already out there. That's all I want to do, is just try to, jump in, that's, they're already talking about it. So that was it. It like I said, it felt like moving day because, that's the end of an era. It's been the better part of a decade, right? 11 years that he's really been, 11 of the last 12 that Auburn's been that Malzahn has been an essential part of Auburn football. And so and you talk about, that he was a high school coach. What we mean by that is the community, it's a coach and kids staying together and being together, and it being for them and their success. In a lot of ways, that's not just about the NFL, right? And that's changing, for whatever direction this goes in, things are different from the way it had been. And even, you look at it, Chiswick was a former Tuberville assistant, Malzahn was a former Chiswick assistant. So there's a lot, you look at Travis Williams on the staff, Cadillac on the staff, who the new coaches should beg to keep. But that's just my opinion. But you're looking at, a long kind of keeping that flame, and it's changing now. It's a new direction, and it's different, and it's gonna be weird.
Well, now looking forward to the future. Funny you mentioned moving day. Auburn is now moving towards finding a new head
What
coach.
a segue.
That was perfect.
Who,
Girl.
who would you say are the best possible candidates for this position, or who you may feel may be the best fit? Not necessarily if there's one, or there could be multiple.
I think there's a few guys that they can look at, and we're still kind of piecing together who the true candidates are. I think Oregon's Mario Cristobal is probably at the top of the list. Former Alabama assistant, he's been a head coach at Florida International prior to that, but he's at Oregon now doing great things. They won the Pac-12 last year, won the Rose Bowl. That's a guy that can come in and lead this program, and is still fairly young and is energetic and has shown he can coach in the SEC. He won Recruiter of the Year at Alabama, so that speaks very highly of his ability to come in and do well. A few other names, Billy Napier at Louisiana Lafayette, another former Alabama assistant, another former Clemson assistant as well, done really good things in the Sun Belt. I think that he's somebody that's in play, and I think the fact that he pulled out of the South Carolina sort of sweepstakes for that job last week, or might have been the week before that, really made it a public statement that he was pulling out. I think he knows he's got other options. Auburn may come into the table, and I think another option that I'm really intrigued to see what happens is Kevin Steele, the current defensive coordinator. Doing that would kind of be like, to Justin's point, sort of sticking with what's been working as far as, Gus was a Chiswick assistant. You stick with an assistant. You stick with stability and maybe just making changes here and there, maybe bringing in a big-name offensive coordinator. I'm really curious to see if that winds up being the case, because obviously Auburn's defenses the last few years have been outstanding and had a lot of talent, and you can see a path where that makes sense, turning it over to Kevin Steele.
There's pros and cons with each one, and like you say, with Kevin, you're keeping what's worked, but also, what are we doing here? We've made this change only to get rid of one person, right? Is that the decision that was made, and someone's going to have to answer if that's the case. What? There's got to be more to it than that, right? With Billy Napier, I mean, you're looking at, so a lot of coaches. There's really no coach that could come in here to say, and on the first day, prove that they have the accolades to win the SEC West, to beat Nick Saban consistently. No one in the country can say that except maybe Dabo, right?
To quote Rick Pitino and paraphrase when he was with the Celtics, Urban Meyer's not walking through that door. I mean, it's just
Right.
as badly as they want that to happen. That's not going to happen.
But in a candidate like Napier, you're at least getting someone who hasn't tried it and failed. You're getting a young up and comer, right? Which is a little different. But then with Mario, you're looking at that's a different pathway. That's okay. This is the Saban assistant. We're going to try to do Kirby Smart. We're going to try to do that here. So that's what I mean. That's there's pros and cons with each, and it's which path do you choose?
And I want to say, too, that I can't help but looking at this situation. I graduated from Georgia. I was there when they got rid of Mark Richt. I feel like there's a lot of parallels between Georgia then and Auburn now, as far as Richt had success early on at Georgia, and it kind of wavered and wasn't quite the same near the end. He couldn't compete with Alabama, which obviously is a big deal here for Auburn. But the big decision was not only getting rid of Richt, because that could have gone one way or the other, but just as equally important is who you replace him with. So that's the big thing as far as Auburn goes. They have to make the right hire. Obviously, Gus had success here, but they got to really do their due diligence and try to find someone that they think can help them compete against Alabama and get back on that national stage like they were able to do in the early 2010s.
Well, funny that you mentioned some different coaches and some parallels. If you could think of any dream candidate you would want to fill this position here at Auburn, who would it be? I mean, as a Bills fan myself, ideally I would like the man in his 90s, Marv Levy, to come in and come fire up this Auburn Tigers football team, but that's not going to happen since he's in his 90s. But ideally, the perfect situation, dream candidate,
Drew Bledsoe
has to be Urban Meyer. You can't, like I saw on Twitter, you can't spell Auburn without Urban. I mean, highly unlikely, but for y'all, who would your dream candidate be?
I think it would be Bill Belichick. I'm sure we wouldn't get a lot of quotes out of him, but
get Phil Jackson to come coach the basketball team.
But my thing would be, what would it look like in college? How would he recruit? Would it work when you've got to go out and convince these guys? And I feel like he's probably not the best salesman at this point in his career, but I'd be intrigued to watch it, and I'd have a lot of fun stories talking about early early Brady and seeing if he can find like the next Tom Brady. I mean, it'd be fun to cover. I'm kind of looking at it from a sports writer's perspective. I think it would be fun to watch Bill Belichick at his age now trying to coach college football.
Justin, what about you?
Denzel Washington reprising his role from Remember the Titans.
That's classic.
That's all. No. Travis Williams, promoting him to head coach, go the Dabo route. Hire two good coordinators, play the CEO, be the face of the program. That's what I do.
Well, now kind of looking toward the future, we got signing day a couple hours away if we're kind of looking at it, let's be honest. So where does Auburn go from here?
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is the fact that as important as this sign-in period is, it's not the end-all be-all, especially this year of all years, because so many kids have not been able to visit these campuses because of the pandemic. I mean, they've been able to see things virtually and talk and FaceTime with coaches, but they haven't gotten to really be on campus to really get to see the facilities up close. So I'm curious to see how many guys even wind up signing during this early signing period because they still have that opportunity to wait until February. I feel like if you're someone who is truly considering Auburn, you're going to just wait till February and see what happens. So obviously Auburn will probably miss out on a couple recruits, guys they thought they might have, had a chance to sign because of this change. But I think the fact that this is happening in the year that it is, it probably won't prove to be quite as big a deal because those guys will probably wait around and see. And and I think that's a big reason why you may not see a hire happen right away. I think they understand that there is really no rush. And especially for Alan Green, when you look at athletic directors at this level, especially in the SEC, you are judged on your football hires. You look at Ray Tanner at South Carolina, he very well may be out of a job, and it's because he hired Will Muschamp, and it did not go well. So I don't think Alan Green is going to be in a position where he is rushed. He's going to take his time, and if the results on that early signing period aren't what Auburn fans want to see, it might just turn around by the time we get to February, and whoever comes in and builds this staff, they should be able to have plenty of time. They'll be busy, but they have plenty of time to really shore this thing up and get the guys they need by the time we get to February.
Justin, where do you think Auburn goes next?
I think we're about 36 hours from signing day right now. So either you're gonna bring somebody in tonight or early in the morning, or you're gonna miss it and you might as well take your time. So we'll see here pretty soon if they're gonna. If someone's going to come in and try to salvage the signing class as it is, or if, they're going to miss it and like you said, kind of aim toward February and see what you can do. It would be tough to miss it, I'll just say that.
And you'll see, too, though, that these assistants, who some of these guys will probably wind up sticking around, they're going to be doing the brunt work. They're going to be doing the Lord's work the next few days and even going into February as whoever comes in and steps in as head coach builds his staff. They're still going to be talking to guys and still be making sure that Auburn that they understand Auburn is still a priority for them. That might have been some breaking news. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to be busy, and you'll still see some big time recruits probably still looking at Auburn.
Well, guys, thank you both for your time on this busy Monday
I'm
here
take a phone call.
in Auburn University. So follow along on OANow.com for the latest updates regarding the Auburn football coach search committee and hopefully a hire in the next couple coming weeks.